Hey everyone, welcome to the Dare to Care podcast, the podcast where we talk about the inner workings of ministry at Inspire Family Fellowship and community stories within the church. If you have any comments, stories, or questions about Inspire or our Dare to Care ministries at any point during our podcast today, feel free to send those questions to me at ty@inspirefamily.org. We also invite you to join us in person at Inspire any Sunday or Wednesday that you're able, 523 North 21st Street, Bismarck, North Dakota. Our Sunday services are at 9:15 and 10:45, and we have Wednesday services at 7 p.m. Of course, we have the meal beforehand at 5, and then classes for both kids and adults starting at 6 o'clock. My name's Ty Farnsworth. I am the worship coordinator here at Inspire Family Fellowship, and I'm joined today by our youth and children's coordinator, Kate Little.
Hi, everyone.
Kate, we have some cool kids. And I know it's not just us. This is something that is going on around the city. In talking with my buddy Matt at Riverstone, the kids in the church, capital letters, TC, are doing some really wonderful things. What have you seen from our kids just here in general? And today we just wanted to share those things with the congregation in a way that, maybe they don't see or haven't heard of. Tell us a little bit about the core group that we have at Inspire. What is core? What does that mean? And what does that mean for the leadership in our youth here at Inspire?
So yeah, we have these things called core. We have a middle school group and a high school group. Long story short, it's basically student council, but for churches. It's something that they started with high school last year more formally, and we just added middle school to it this year because we saw it working so well in high school. It's just a group of kids who wanted to work together to help better the church, help make people feel more included and just like they're a part of this family.
We have talked a little bit, touched on youth in previous podcasts, but where did this youth program start? Because I remember, 5, 6, 7 years ago, Ernie talked about his high school group was 5 kids, maybe?
Yeah, so if you don't know our story and how Inspire came to be, we didn't always have this building. We were meeting, they were meeting other places before this, but I joined when we were meeting at the Baymont, and there was elementary classes, there was middle school classes, but there wasn't really anything for high school. I know a couple people, like maybe 4 or 5 people, would stay after the service just in the hotel lobby and would just kind of talk about, hey, what happened in service and do a little bit of that. Once we got into this building and we got some more staff on board, they were like, okay, it's time. We need to create something for high school. So that's kind of where core unofficially began,
Sure.
Actually. Ernie just roped in some of the high school kids that he knew here. There were probably 5 to 7 kids. And he just kind of brought them in and said, hey, I want you guys to make this ministry your own with our guidance. We weren't going to just let them run amok.
Why not? Knowing the kids we have here, why not? No.
So he just kind of let them take the reins a little. And I think that helped them grow deeper in their faith and just kind of, they had stake in the game, sort of. I don't know. Sure. I can't think of what that saying is, but you know what I'm talking about.
A stake in the game.
A stake. There you go. I knew you'd get it.
I switched the spelling. I was thinking of food, but no, that's good.
So it's like they had a reason to be here. They wanted to be here because they were part of the reason that our high school has grown to what it is today.
Sure. So what are you seeing from our high school leaders, and how is that affecting just the general population of the youth that we have here at Inspire?
So it's really funny because, and like Ty said, this isn't just happening within Inspire. We don't want you to think oh, we're so much better. We're not. I've gone to a couple community events this past year, and to see the teens coming from other churches too and the good works that they're doing, we're all on the same team here. Yes, we're different churches, but we're all working towards the same goal, right? So I'm going to be talking a little bit about Inspire stuff, but it doesn't mean it's not happening other places because I've seen it.
Sure.
And they're all doing amazing things out there. And so our leaders here, it's funny because I've had a couple people from out of town. We go to this church camp in South Dakota, and they're like, man, you guys have a bunch of kids that are coming to this. How did you get so many kids? And I just kind of have to sit back and laugh because yes, us staff and us adult leaders do things to help these kids, But really, the main reason why these kids are growing is because of the leaders among their peers.
Sure.
Their peers are a huge reason why our youth group is growing, because they're just inviting kids. They keep inviting them and inviting them. I talked to 2 kids just because they've been inviting so many kids. I'm like, you guys, I hope you realize the impact that you're making on like your friends' lives. You're helping them grow a connection with God, and that's amazing. And so I kind of sat down with them and they go, yeah, what we do is we both work together and we find one person and we just target one person. I was like, don't bully them, but like...
No, but Rob uses the phrase Jesus bullies or bullies for Jesus. I see this in such a positive way. Every single Wednesday when we're at Ignite, I see Karsten and the other senior boys, and standing right in front of them, right between me and them, is Jake McLaughlin, who is all of, how old? 4th grader, 5th grader?
He's 4th grade now, I believe.
And it's just like they have taken this kid into their group on Wednesday nights and are impacting him in a way that is so positive. And now he is showing his peers, like, this is what it means to worship. This is what it means to be not just a member of Inspire, but a person who worships freely in the church and is not afraid to show that praise. And he got that and is influencing his fellow elementary kids because of the leadership that we have in the high schoolers. And so that's what I'm seeing. What are some other examples that you've seen?
Well, just on that, I know you're leading worship and that takes a lot to do.
Sure.
So maybe you haven't noticed this, but I love standing at the back of the room, just like variously throughout the service. And I just see these little kids, just creeping up step by step by step, trying to get closer to this thing we call a praise pit. It's basically just a bunch of kids gathered at the front, right up by the stage worshiping because they just want to be a community together up there. And it's just so cool to see them trying to creep up there. And then when the older kids notice, we were worried actually as a staff that the older kids were going to turn away from the praise pit because the younger kids were kind of starting to creep up there, and the exact opposite happened. Have you noticed that?
Well, yeah, because I think of it all the time. When I was a high schooler in church, one thing that I really struggled with is I didn't have the leadership group that we have here. And, it was one of those things, do I go to church or do I do the things that are cool? And what I see here at this church is we have such strong leaders, especially in the high school, but even in the middle school, where they see the kids on the outside, and instead of shooing them away because we don't want them to ruin our worship session, they pull them in because they understand that this is all of us. And what I'm doing here impacts the younger generation and is going to snowball into future generations. And I'm starting something now that is going to affect the people of this place and future churches 50 years down the road. Whether they think of that consciously, I don't know. But it's so incredible to watch. I haven't seen the specific example of that, but I know that's something we were worried about, is they were going to shut out people because it was affecting the way they were worshiping. And it's the exact opposite, like you said. It's fantastic to watch and to see them influence other people.
It's so cool. And you said you were torn between going to church or doing the cool thing. A lot of people can think the cool thing is like sports or parties or whatever else it may be, right? A big thing is sports. We have a lot of kids that are in sports and they show up late to youth group, which is totally fine. Kids are always so worried about showing up late. I said, hey, I'm just glad you're here. Sure. Like, if you have to be late, do what you have to do. I get it. I don't want you to get cut from the team. I don't want you to get placed lower. Like, do what you got to do. Show up when you're able to in the night, whether it's for youth group, if it's for service, whatever. And we actually had a middle school boy last semester who likes sports, is this kid's world. Like, he's a die-hard hockey fan. I know you can relate to that because
I know him. I see him at the ice rink every weekend, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
This kid loves hockey, and he went up to his mom after service before service after youth group, and he was like, "Mom, do I have to go to hockey? Like, can I please stay?" And the mom came up to me and had to share it with me because that's something that I don't think she ever thought was going to come out of her kid's mouth, is that, can I please stay for service instead of hockey? Because he is at the rink every day.
No, Tim has a phrase, I'm going to paraphrase it, but it's essentially, he doesn't care. I mean, he does, but the biggest thing, we want kids here. Because if they're here, then they're not being pulled to the worldly things and the worldly obsessions and the worldly addictions. If they're here, regardless of how involved they are, it's taken them away from that. And that's a good thing. And we saw it last week as a recording last week. We saw it with the dance. I have never seen high schoolers so involved, not even in just a church event, but in a dance in general. It was like prom for them. We had
It was better than prom.
70 high schoolers showing up and getting involved and learning how to dance. Not just being here, but learning how to dance, getting involved. And it was such a cool social event to watch as a mentor and as an on-staff leader for these kids. They really enjoyed it. They want to be here. It's fantastic.
I was so wrong about that event. I know you and I talked about that. We were so wrong. And Rob, I'm the first to admit it. We were like, oh, there's probably going to be 50 people here. Ty and I were talking back and forth. And Rob was like, oh, there's probably going to be like 200. And we look at each other and we're like, no way.
Not a chance.
Not a chance that many people. Absolutely wrong. There was at least 200 people.
At least 200 people.
In the building. From elementary, even like almost babies, toddlers, to our elderly population. And it was amazing to see the mix of people there. It was so cool.
You pointed out the Crumwoodies. They didn't even bring their kids. They just showed up and they had a date night and they came to the church dance. And
we've been calling them the king and the queen of the dance.
Oh my gosh, it was fantastic. It was literally like church prom queen. It was so cool to see. And we're using adults as examples here, but this is just one of the instances where kids are setting the temperature.
Yeah.
They aren't reliant on other people to bring the energy and bring the want to be a part of this place because of the foundation that we've set from the beginning. And now they are the ones setting the tone for the future generations. What are some other examples that you have? I know there's a couple you mentioned, especially on the topic of like sports.
So on the topic of sports, I've gone to a lot of these kids' events, whether it's track, soccer, volleyball, you name it. These kids are always involved in a lot of sports. And I love going there to just cheer them on. I go to their band concerts, choir, all sorts of different events. Just to cheer them on and let them know, like, hey, we see you and I'm proud of you for being involved in all of this. And the cool thing is, I love it when they don't see me, which sounds really weird, but I love it when they don't see me right away because I get to see how they're going to act outside of this church. And it's not like a spying mission. I know it sounds like that, but it's so cool to see because I see them cheering on the kids that nobody else is cheering on.
Sure.
They're out there and it just makes you feel good and feel like sure. You're doing something right and that other churches are doing something right because they're pulling in their friends who go to other churches and they're creating a community outside of our individual church buildings sure. to be able to encourage those that might be left behind otherwise.
Well, I know we've talked about this isn't just an issue here. It's not an issue here, but it's something we worried about and it's something that churches worry about all the time, that as the youth program grows, as the church grows, we lose this small church feel. We lose the intimacy. We lose the everybody knows everybody. And you and I talked about it, and Ernie talked about it. As the youth program expands, we got really worried that things were going to get cliquey. Mm-hmm. And no churches without issues. But what we've seen, especially through this core group, is everybody's on the same page. Everybody's on the same team. And you talk about not leaving the one behind. Mm-hmm. That is the example that our kids are setting. And like we said, not to toot our own horns because it's happening at other churches too. But the kids in the churches are the ones looking for the outcasts and making them feel wanted and bringing them in a way that maybe they've never felt before. And that's fantastic. And we're seeing new relationships, not just between kids and Jesus, but kids with each other within the church because of that sort of thing. And that's fantastic to see.
So since we're talking about other churches as well, we had one of our previous seniors, he's graduated now, but he brought a buddy to church one time, and I knew that he was new because I hadn't seen him before, and I just started introducing myself, and the person that went here was like, yeah, this is my buddy so-and-so, he goes to a different church, like we were at his church this morning, and now we're here, and he seemed almost hesitant to tell me that like, oh, air quotes, our kid went to a different, like, we don't own these kids.
No, not only that, we don't care. We just want you to be in a relationship with Jesus.
And that's exactly what I told him. I looked at him and I said, are you kidding me? Like, I feel like you're scared to tell me this. I am so happy to hear that you got up on a Sunday morning when most kids are sleeping and you chose to not only go to one church service, but two at two different churches. Like that's amazing. That's all you could ever ask for. We don't own any of these kids and we're happy wherever they are. So if you're a church that has seen some of the kids who walk through our doors, thank you. Thank you for being
Absolutely.
a place that they feel safe to go to and to explore your ministries. We have kids like when we don't have a Wednesday, they went over to your buddy Matt's Riverstone's church. And they were over there. They go to other places. I hear kids telling me of other places all the time. They're going to events. They're going to places when we're off for a Wednesday here and there. And I think that's amazing. Thank you for welcoming these kids in. I know they're crazy. I know they're a lot of work, but thank you.
No, it's, we changed the intro maybe 8-10 weeks ago to community stories within the church and then added community stories around the church. And one thing that I would love to add in a few weeks' time here is just hearing stories about other churches around the area, the Bismarck-Mandan area, that fantastic things are happening in, and how we at Inspire can support them and know about them and celebrate them, because at the end of the day, a church is a building and its people, but the message should always be about bringing people to Jesus. Regardless of the differences between, Inspire, we keep using Riverstone as an example. I was formerly employed at Bismarck Baptist in town here. All of us are striving to bring people, and specifically right now, we're talking about kids, to Jesus. That's the ultimate goal.
We're just trying to better the kingdom of God all together. We can't all do it by ourselves. If we try to just segregate ourselves and do it all on our own, we're not going to get very far.
Well, and the kids are so fantastic because not only are they empowering each other and lifting each other up and doing things for each other, they've been doing things for us too. I mean, tell them about your lunch story.
So there's two of our high school boys who just happened to be in our high school coffee shop when Rob was making fun of me because I wasn't able to go out. Our staff likes to go out to lunch every now and again together, just to build us closer together. Sure. And I don't know, we need to eat at some point, right? And so Rob was...
No, go ahead.
Rob was making fun of me because I wasn't able to go. I had too many things to do that day. So I was like, no, I better pass. And he was making fun of me in front of these two boys. And I get a text later that night and they said, hey, Kate, like my friend and I were wondering if you wanted to go to lunch. And I'm sitting there thinking, uh-oh. Like what? They never asked me to go to lunch. I'm like, what major thing happened that like they need to talk through? And then I get there and I was like, so what's up? Like, what's going on? They go, nothing. We just felt bad that you didn't get to go to the staff lunch. So we wanted to invite you to this. And my jaw dropped. I was like, are you kidding me? These two teenage boys of all people, well, exactly. No offense, boys. But these two teenage boys felt bad for me because I didn't get to go, and they invited me out to lunch and just wanted to hang out. I'm like, that was so cool. And it's not only me that they're helping. You have a funny story of something that happened to our pastor. Yeah,
so Rob told the story in church around Christmas, at least, where Rob has talked before. He's not they don't decorate the outside of their house for Christmas.
Grinch.
Yeah. Well, they live right next to the Fries, and the Fries go all out for Christmas. They are one of like Bismarck's premier light shows. People do the tours of the Christmas lights every holiday, and they're the one up kind of by Horizon, north of the Mormon Temple. And right across the street is Pastor Rob's. And he decorates the inside of his house. They have a fantastic decoration inside their house that I've been there several times for Christmas. But outside, they typically never do lights. And Rob was telling this story at Christmas where all of a sudden he hears banging on his above his garage. And his wife, he could tell his wife was in on it because she kind of prodded him to go outside. And two boys from the church are on top of his roof putting up Christmas lights because he mentioned the fact in a service a few weeks ago, I typically don't put up Christmas lights. And they felt bad for him. Not like he had an issue putting up Christmas lights, but they just wanted to do it for him. And that is, one of these fantastic examples of our kids are helping us to inspire the kids, to inspire us it's a cycle, and it's a fantastic just building of relationships and building up of each other that I'm just so blessed that we have here at this place and that other churches around the city have too.
And I have one other thing to add to that. I have multiple kids actually, but there's one kid in specific that she will reach out to me just randomly. And she'll be like, hey, I read this Bible study, or I read this Bible verse, and I thought of you, or I thought it was really good and it really hit home, and I just wanted to share it with you. I know, like, myself personally, working with kids and youth of all ages, Ernie, you, Isaac, all sorts of us reach out to so many people in a week, and we're just checking in on them, seeing how they're doing. And like, this kid has done it to me. I don't think I could count how many times just in this year alone. They'll just reach out and just share a Bible verse, share a Bible study with me. And it's not just this one kid in specific. There's multiple other ones. I get texts on like Friday nights. And whenever I get a text on like a late Friday night, I'm like, what happened? I'm always a cautious person. I'm like, what happened?
Well, we used Randy last week, his example of, can you come to my office? And
you
and I both, it must be our generation, because we're always just like, what happened?
It's like getting called to the principal's office.
But same thing when you get these texts on a late night, it's like, oh, something happened.
And like 10 times out of 10, it's never anything bad. It's usually something really good.
What happened this time?
So I've had multiple teens just texting me saying, hey, do you know where I can look for verses on anxiety? Do you know where I can look for verses on this? And they're reaching out and like, they're sending me pictures of the Bible studies they're doing by themselves with friends on a Friday night. Do you know how many other things they can be doing on a Friday night? There's so many different options. But what are they doing? They're at home doing a Bible study. I'm like, that's so cool to see. And I know some of them are combined with other churches. I know some of our high school boys have a Bible study, and there's Bible studies going on in the schools, actually. Did you know about that?
I did know that, which I don't know if things changed, but when I was in high school, that was not a thing. And even if you suggested it, like, you were not going to get away with that.
No, and every single Friday, I'm pretty sure, they have a Bible school or a Bible study, at least at Century. I guess I'm not entirely sure about other high schools, but they have a Bible study there. That's so incredible. Cool. And it's just kids from other churches just combining together at their school to teach others about Jesus.
Sure. That's really cool to hear. Just this community, our kids are doing fantastic things, and I think we need to celebrate that. You and I talk all the time, like, kids are dumb.
Oh, they're so dumb.
Kids do some really, really dumb things, and a lot of the, I don't want to say distrust, but the attitude that the older generations may have toward the youth, there's a lot of negativity there sometimes. I don't know if it's jealousy of youth or just the irresponsibility that they see oftentimes and the stories that they hear. But we just want to lift up our youth and celebrate them and just let the non-youth in the congregation know the great things that are going on with the youth here. And when you see a kid, celebrate them, because they're doing wonderful things.
Absolutely. When I was asked to come on the podcast to talk about this, I was like, absolutely. I absolutely want to come on here. Not to say like, oh, our kids are amazing, it's only our kids. It's absolutely not. That's not the point of this podcast. If you've listened this far and you think that's what we're trying to get at, that's not at all. I just feel like society looks down on the younger generations because, yeah, they are kind of dumb sometimes. But adults, so were you. Yeah. Like, you weren't perfect when you were young either. They do dumb things, but that's because they're young and they don't have the knowledge of an 80-year-old person. You know what I mean? But they're doing amazing things. And I feel like they're looked down upon because, yeah, there's all this technology that they're being influenced by. They might not be the most responsible at times. They might do dumb things or whatever. But they're doing amazing things as well. And honestly, I think it's a minority that is doing those things, and that gives the youth a bad reputation. Like, the people that are doing the bad things is just such a small percentage of the youth actually in our community. But I feel like that just kind of spreads, and then everybody's labeled as that. And it's so far from the truth. There are so many good teens in our community, good middle schoolers, good high schoolers, good elementary kids that are just doing wonderful things. I talked a little bit about it if you were at our Children's and Youth Christmas program, and I just said, give these kids a pat on the back. They don't get as much credit as they deserve. I'm not saying you have to praise them every second of the day, but they're doing amazing things. And it's time to start uplifting the teens and showing them that, like, it's not all on us as staff. It's not all on us as leaders to try and help them with everything. Like, they can take some responsibility for their faith. They can take some responsibility for their lives because they're more than capable of it. They teach me things every single week that I didn't know before. These kids are teaching me just as much as I'm teaching them, and they deserve the credit.
Well, Kate, thanks for joining me today and for sharing. Any closing thoughts? I know we're coming up on about 25 minutes now, and I just wanted to pray for the youth and again, celebrate all the things they're doing. There are plenty of other ministries in the church that we want to celebrate too, and we don't want to single out the kids, but you and I have offices right next door. It's easier to do it just to drag you in here and talk about it. So we'll talk about some other ministries, our women's and men's ministries coming up fairly shortly. And again, we'll continue to hear from people in the church. But I just wanted to pray for the youth. So if you guys are listening, if you have the capability to bow your heads and pray, please join us. Father, thank you for the youth and the young energy that they bring, not just to this place, but the churches around Bismarck, Mandan, and the surrounding areas. Continue to inspire them to do good works in your name, to constantly seek out relationship with you, to constantly find new ways to improve the kingdom and bring the kingdom that you have to earth here and be excellent examples of your will being done here on earth as it is in heaven. Thank you for all of the kids here, all the people that influence the youth are being fantastic role models to our youth. And we just continue to ask you to bless this ministry. It's in your mighty name that we pray. Amen. Kate, if people have questions or stories about our youth that they want to share or ask you, how can they find you?
You can find me at my email, which is Kate, Kate, @inspirefamily.org.
Perfect. And if you have other questions, Dare to Care related, like I said at the start of this podcast, feel free to reach out to me. That is Ty, T-Y, @inspirefamily.org. Otherwise, thank you guys for joining us. Celebrate a youth, celebrate yourself, and we will see you next Thursday.